It's a world full of walls, so let's imagine windows instead. Imagine windows that connect. Imagine windows that protect. Imagine windows that unite. Imagine windows that open minds. Imagine windows, not walls. Eternia.
At Eternia, we are on a mission to create the best windows the world has ever seen. And that is why every window in our product portfolio offers uncompromising safety, world-class aesthetics, and a customer service you would have never experienced before. But that's not all. We want these windows to fill our spaces, to fill our homes, our schools, our offices, and fill these spaces with laughter, with lighting, and with a lot of inspiration. But can we do it without the piercing insights of experts like architects and interior decorators? People who have spent their lives studying spaces and how it affects our lifestyle, our feelings, and most importantly, how it affects our behavior. We value this insight, and that is why we bring to you Authentic Insights, a platform where we will bring to you renowned architects to share their life experiences, to share their expertise, and how they look at spaces while designing it. How can you increase the lighting in the house? How can you increase the space utilization in the house? How can you bring more of the outside inside the house while at the same time keeping it safe, keeping it protected? How can you increase the aesthetic of the house with small changes? So we want to bring to you all of these through this platform, through their experience and through their expertise. What we also want to share with you in this is how Eternia can make a small contribution towards enhancing the experience of your house. We encourage them to share their Eternia experience, their honest view of the Eternia experience, our service offering, the nuts and bolts of our product, and most importantly, our people, Tribe Eternia as we call them. In effect, Authentic Insight is our small attempt to bring to you everything to do with indoor and outdoor spaces at your doorstep, and as a result help you create spaces which you and your family can cherish and create a joyous life around. It is our attempt to create a world which is ready to imagine windows, not walls. Thank you.
So good evening, everybody. We have a very interesting subject that we're going to be talking about today, primarily based on how windows, doors, influence architecture, interior design, and spaces that we live in, work in, and a lot more to talk about. And we have some very interesting people on our panel. I'll start with the ladies. We have Jayashree Bhalla, who's a senior architect. We have Nehal Bazari from Hindalco. And then we have senior people like Milind from Milind and Architects. And we have Rohit Bhoite from Bhoite House of Design. We have Sunil Gambani, also from Drishti Architects and Interior Designers. So I am Suresh D'souza from Deksha Design, and we will be discussing, the entire conversation is based on how windows, doors influence our entire design sense, what are the practicalities in it, and a lot more. So let me start by asking Jayashree, who's into architecture primarily. Jayashree, what's your take on, what do you look at how a window or a door in your architectural design could manifest into something that brings in a different thought process on the table?
Yeah, so primarily, I'm also a landscape architect. So the 4 elements that I usually start off with are doors, windows, because doors are in between the inside and the outside. So for me, that transition space is what works for the building. So it's doors, windows, plants, and art, and they're completely different from what an architect might, relate or start his building with. Usually, we are taught to start with form, and so for me, a form would take a little bit of a backseat, and it's primarily windows and doors, which kind of also decide my elevation. The way the windows will form the geometry on any facade, or the way that a door is something which is a transitional space, and therefore primarily when you do landscape architecture, they do come in as very important elements of the design. So that's how important.
So since you talked about being a landscape architect along with designing your house, one of the interesting features that I noticed in a lot of bungalows today is trying to bring the outside into the inside through the process of your windows, through glazing, through your doors. So making it feel like you're literally outside. Could you highlight a little more on that subject?
Yeah. So another very important aspect, which is getting even more important these days because of all the glass boxes that we are seeing, is what we call breathing architecture. These are buildings which really breathe naturally, and not only through doors and windows, but even through materiality. Of course, there are lots of glass boxes where windows do not open, and I'll just reserve my comments on that because, one must have an open mind, like one must have an open window. But yes, so for juxtapositioning windows so that they work, their orientation, their placement, even however tiny, they don't have to be very large for the cross ventilation aspect of it. They are very, very important when you're doing natural buildings, or you're doing buildings which are expected to breathe even when they are closed, even when they are shut. There's a certain kind of airiness which happens, and we are all blessed to be, most of our projects are in India, although they vary from Calcutta to Chennai. And some of them are, campus buildings or institutional buildings, public buildings, where air conditioning is not always possible. And so it becomes very important for doors and windows to play their role the way they are supposed to.
True. And considering the fact that we're living in a very tropical environment, these are the two aspects that, act as a very important aspect. So let me take this question to, Milind. Milind, on the fact that, strategically, when one designs a particular space and your client gives you a brief, how do you see bringing in openness into a closed space through doors and windows?
Yeah, so especially coming from city like Bombay, which is kind of starved for space, vis-a-vis the big bungalows, that we do outstation. There's a totally different outlook, as per the areas in which we operate. Like for a city of Mumbai, I think we really need to open up our interiors and look into the exteriors to create that feeling of space, because the more you make the space congested and the opening smaller, you get that feeling of claustrophobia, in a smaller spaces. And with rooms like 10 by 12 and things like that, windows play a very important role in opening up your internal spaces to the outer spaces. And then again, when it comes to design factor, what actually happens is what is the style of design what we are looking at also makes a difference, because when we work on different themes, the windows play a very important role in defining the style. And while we can sometimes use it to create a space, sometimes we can even frame a certain space outside as a part of your interior decor. Like imagine there's a sea facing flat, and usually automatically that first thing that comes to your mind is something like a minimal, clean space that will relate to the outdoors. And the same thing happening with a woody decor outside or a desert outside. No, immediately what you see through a window immediately tickles your senses, and somehow subconsciously you start getting the vibes as to what the interior decor should look like. So for me, that is the kind of communication that one needs to have with the outdoor as a designer.
So this is one of the funny parts that we face as restrictions when we do high-rise apartments and residences, and we have this challenge where the building is predetermined with its size of windows and doors. Doors internally can always be changed, but windows per se have been restricted by the architect. And how do you look at it from that perspective to compensate and balance that, Milind, to make your internal spaces start feeling more spoken out and more vibrant, more light driven?
So as I said, we have a choice of using the window as a transparent medium or like a emphatic medium, to define your design. So when you look at a window which is a very big height and very wide, and it opens into the outside, vis-a-vis a window which is a small window, but then you are going to have a lot of ornate features like the curtains and the pelmets and the things that are going to really highlight it like an element of your design. So you need to really understand the space and the style and the psychological impact that you want to create in that design. And that is the way you approach window as a, you define the functionality of the window based on the space and the theme and the psychological demand of that space, basically.
Right. So let me take this question to Rohit. Rohit, you said you worked in Dubai, you worked in Toronto, and you're working in India. Interestingly, the whole process of windows and doors in both these places differs so drastically because of climatic conditions. When you're designing a tropical place and then you suddenly go to a cold climate place, the whole concept. So tell us a little about your experience in this.
So basically, so my limitation comes where that everyone is being talking about the space planning, and as an interior designer, the space is already given to us. So we are the interior architect within the space where we have limitations, what we can change and what we can't. So when we start with a project, we have a mindset as what is the energy or what is the style, as Milind sir said, is what you want to predict. Say, for example, when we are doing houses, they already come with a predetermined design concept. Say, for example, if you're doing a Spanish villa, of course, then the whole structure of the doors and the windows also need to have those arches. And hence that kind of lights and those kind of shadows play in the interior space. So for us, mainly it is the style, what is chosen for a project, that has to come through these openings within the space. And yes, of course, for the weather, there would be soundproofing, weatherproofing, heatproofing, and those kind of technical aspect which comes into play. But as design features, if you ask me, how do we go about it? It is always the outcome of what is the theme of the project.
And have you realized there's a very big difference in the material compositions that are used abroad as compared to India?
Honestly, no, because we also have all those high-grade windows today in India. There is nothing extraordinary which does not exist here. Yes, there is a bigger advantage in the outside market that it's introduced there first because because the technology is new and it's very expensive. So it takes time for it to come down to India to be explored. And there, since it's a necessity, for example, the heat cut or the weather cut is a necessity. In Bombay, it is not a necessity, but people do it for privilege. So that being a difference, the evolution or the experimental design is first experienced in these countries. Then it does come to India also. Like the biggest of the biggest companies, when they come up with a new technology, you will see it in the international market first.
Right. Another choice, since Sunil, you're into architecture as well. Typically, when you're designing places, apartments, you're designing bungalows that are outside the city. What kind of styles do you generally tend to work with, and what's your style, and what's your consideration in terms of, how do you interact with ventilation? Can you give us a little understanding about your thought process on materials, ventilation, choice of sizes, directional flow, etc.
See, really speaking, whenever we're doing a build to suit, and that's one advantage that anyone can hope and pray for, because then you have the ability to shape your interiors, or rather your architecture, with respect to a final end product which the person who resides within is extremely happy with. So happiness, of course, precedes everything else. And largely we have seen that light and height, these are two things that bring it closer to you. Even if it's a dwarf or whatever it is, a dwarf can get awed, or a tall man will want to be within a space which is grand. This is one of the things which we've seen prevalent. Light and height is something that brings in a very, very natural ambience to a place, and is something that brings in a lot of energy and a vibrant nature to a space. The advantage with a build to suit is that you can use your architecture to determine your interior and vice versa. In most cases, wherever we've designed, we've looked at a consistency in how one can bring the outside in and the inside out in some form or the other, with maximizing light and height both in our doors and windows, because these give you the ability to bring in obviously you'll say it is space dependent, location dependent, but largely as much light as one can bring about, you always have the ability to be able to, for an odd guy that doesn't want it, there are always drapes and things which can enable them get rid of it. But welcoming the sun, welcoming light into your house, I personally am a big fan of some of this. And doors and windows obviously give you the ability to do this. In addition to this, the fenestration that they add is tremendous. Now that fenestration can be anyone's choice. So, we are extremely versatile, right from extremely minimal and modern structures to something that is very, very traditional. We entertain, we don't get restricted per se by what the client wants is what we try to do it well, rather than, impose a style on them.
Let me throw another question to you, which is very imperative to today's world. We've seen windows, doors, culminate into different styles, seamless doors. We used to always we've grown up with doors with frames and, solid teak wood doors. And today the whole concept of doors have changed so drastically. Tell us a little about your experience with innovation, your experience of new technology that has, come into being, that has really made a difference to, your clients and the rest of the world to look at.
It's absolutely phenomenal. I'm saying now wood, for instance, itself is treated in so many different forms and available to you. Earlier, if you were to do a classical structure, for instance, you would make it very, very traditional, like a building in Ballad Pier, or let's say like a building in Lutyens, Delhi. Then you would have those casement windows and things like that. Today, with an envelope, which is still extremely classical, and you've got some fabulous gardens and acres of lawns in front of you, there are a large number of youngsters and the generation's changing. So while you still have guys who are young and looking at, having something which is really modern and nice, they still want the touch of classic, for instance. You have that ability to be able to have openings which are arched, openings which are very, very traditional. You still have the stone, but then you have the ability to have windows which are nice and large without having some of those casements. So it, in fact, develops a style of architecture also, which is very, very traditional at the same time of today and modern. So some of these, minimal windows, I'm saying even furniture we do within very, very classical envelopes, we do extremely modern furniture. We've seen this. You've seen this in cities like Paris and Milan. You've seen all of this coexist very well. And, there's no harm.
Yeah, because I love the integration. When you look at the Louvre and other places, you will see an old traditional structure that's brought
Absolutely.
in with an ice, like an ice cube in front of it that's in glass box. And it
Absolutely.
integrates so beautifully with the old world and the new world.
All over the world, be it Berlin or be it Paris, London, all of these places have classical and modern really blending very well, even within similar structures. I would go to the extent of saying places like Milan, when you see those fabulous showrooms, your expression from outside of what is within is not determined only by the architecture. It suddenly turns extremely modern, but it coexists very well.
Very true. Like,
That-
for example, when you do retail and you have fixed, glass, the way it's seamlessly fitted in most of the
Absolutely.
high-end boutiques. Like I remember when we were doing Burberry's and the first Burberry store that came out of the Taj, it was a very intriguing project because the detailing was so intense. We didn't have the fixtures and fitments from here, so we had to import them from Dubai. But at the end of the day, within a period of 3 years, they were all available in India. They were selling the hardware, they were selling everything.
Oh,
So
absolutely. And Indians are extremely enterprising at getting whatever's available in the world into India in no time at all. And they do have a fair amount of money power as well to be able to do it very well.
and this whole concept of Make in India has actually motivated a lot of people to come up with new products, new lines.
Absolutely.
Let me take this question to Milind again. Milind,
Yeah.
you've had years of experience, 33, 35 years of experience in this field of architecture, design. You've done several great projects. Where have you found the most challenging aspect when it came to, creating windows? Was it large sizes? Was it material compositions? Was it, technicalities of fixing? Give us some of those little stories there.
Yeah, so if you are working in a city like Mumbai, uh, first thing and foremost thing is we are just not allowed to do anything with the facades. And that's the most challenging part, because if the developers are going to give no standard heights of 7 feet or 8 feet, there is hardly any challenges that we can create in the design. And so this is the most important part of that when we talk about indoor to outdoor, the scales have changed over a period of time. We have seen that doors heights have evolved from 7 feet, 8 feet. The ceiling heights are now going up, and now people are realizing the importance of giving more spacious, lighting elements in the walls. But honestly, whenever we encounter any projects in Mumbai specifically, the biggest challenge is how to make it look open, because we have beautiful projects happening in places like Warsaw and which have a beautiful view around. But suddenly we find we are totally barricaded indoor versus outdoor. It just doesn't flow the way we have to flow. But when you are doing your own architecture, of course, you have all the freedoms and about the heights and the openings and the scale of the doors, what you want to have, the impact you want to create by the grand, the first main door looking very, very grand and out of scale. So things like that are possible only when you are doing your own architecture. But if you're bogged down with your developer built flats, that is a very, very challenging zone. And I don't really feel we really even get an opportunity to do something with the windows, actually. All we can end up doing is just dressing up the windows and really not designing the windows.
So at one time, I remember most of these high rises where the wind factor was very high. Everyone was using Italian, door makers,
Yeah.
window makers, and German technology and the rest. Today, I see a lot of developers moving to Indian manufacturers who are providing product qualities on par with what Europe is offering, and at a far superior price. So, what's your view on those?
Yeah, so I think we have evolved very fast, actually, because there was a time when these things looked very exotic, and there was a very high premium pricing for these, and the vendors used to really make a big issue out of giving a very the 3 meters high window and only having two glass panes. But I have seen in last 5 to 6 years, I think lot of them have caught up now. And I think so many vendors I'm seeing now who have got those slim sections and the special section which can go up to a very high degree of heights and widths also. So now that gap has totally vanished. I think now we can get these kind of things at a very affordable price range. This suits a common man's budget also in a way. Though they are not cheap, but they are still affordable. But it was not like before when it was something like meant for very very high end individuals. But now I think common the medium scale decors can easily take advantage of the vendors who have really made a good mark on this technology now.
Right. Let me ask Jayashree a question in terms of when you do bungalow design. Very often people want, high-ended. We've been talking about high-end product quality and, of course, very tall windows, so that you have the outdoors completely open to the indoors, and that's like sometimes windows can reach up to heights of 10 feet, sliding. Yeah. So, have you ever tried using those, and what are the complications you faced, as well as how do you go about doing that?
Yeah. So doors and windows, they are like a spatial communication tool. And obviously, when you're doing a bungalow, especially luxury or a high-end one, there are some of them which you want them to be as tall as possible and as wide, and more importantly, with very few intersections. So the glass joinery has to be as slim as possible, as well as to take the heights that we wanted to. And yeah, this is where I can also agree with what Milind was saying, is that there's so much available now that it makes it all possible. Yeah, so I mean, historically, people have always wanted big doors, big windows, started with the Buland Darwaza also, you can say, during Akbar's time. So that desire is always there. And of course, the restrictions do follow. But yeah, so coming back to your question, for residential interiors, residential luxury homes, we kind of try to integrate it with, a system where the door and window amalgamates itself to form a large screen of windows. That's one way in which we have tackled it in a bungalow at Alibag. And yeah, just try to use, precisely, technically better material. Also for, wind velocities. We are in this kind of area where flooding is huge. So yeah, the technical demands on windows are very high these days.
Rohit, what's your experience been with customers? Do they outline what they want in terms of materials, or do you have the free hand at most times to say, hey, listen, I'm doing this. I think this is the best material that would be suited for your design. And, because of these reasons that I would suggest, you're too close to the sea, so use this, or, your high wind factor, so use that. Would that be the point and prerogative you take forward?
I wish to have a free hand, but I don't think we ever get a free hand to do all the choice making. The cost and design, of course, they want to be a part of it. And I think it's fair enough, because end of the day, it's their old premises. There has to be their character reflecting too. So saying that, what I would want to highlight is, it is I'm only in the industry since last 10 years. But within the 10 years, I've seen a sliding window, for example, takes so many different turns in terms of, first, they were only sliding. Then they became soft sliding in terms of they had a track system where the ball bearings were on the floor itself. Then there was lift up and slide. Then there was a railing within the system. Then there is a mesh in the system. Then there is a glass which goes frosted within the system. I'm like, now, tomorrow there'll be a window doing interior design also for us. So the window is technology has done so much. Tomorrow there'll be a TV in the window also.
Oh, you already have wardrobes. Yeah, right.
So I'm like, there is so much. The evolution has been there, but also there is a flip side to it, because everything we talk about technology, it only keeps going to modern. And for example, as a studio, we've just seen that like fashion, the design also keeps going around. And when you come to the classic part, there is where the straight slimline windows and the new modern don't fit in the classic or a semi-transition design spaces. But yes, there are few companies who are coming up with wooden sections, or they're coming up with curved sections. So I think, yeah, it's like a whole different tech of windows and doors, which we are going to see in the few years coming.
No, I'm sure, because the fact is that, like you said, there are products made out of aluminum that are coated with wood. There are products that are epoxy coated. There are products that are, differently coated, differently manufactured. There's so much to offer that there's a plethora to, it gets you all confused at most times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, true. Let me get back to Milind and ask him, Milind, what has your experience been in tropical design, considering that you've probably done a lot of tropical architecture in and around the whole coast? So at that point, what do you tend to use and why? Sorry, Milind, I think you are on mute.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so coming to tropical, I think the first thing that rings well is the waterproofing, which is the most important challenge what we face. And there are times when we are doing projects in a place like Andaman Nicobar now, and when the client asks for a wooden window or something, something that comes in wood, to me, as an architecture firm which has evolved, and we have seen with our experience, what kind of effects the weather has on wood, especially in a very high monsoon zone. So we try to kind of talk people out of the using the natural teak, and they could use material that looks like teak coated aluminum windows. So people don't move on.
Sorry, Milind, I think we've lost your connection and you're on mute again.
Yeah. So it takes some time for us to also understand the practicality of the project, because after handing over, we don't want to get stuck up with kind of problems with water and the high velocity winds and all. So there, this aluminium and UPVC and this kind of windows offer a very good life for our project, basically. So, that's the challenge which we have faced right from the city like Delhi to Guwahati to going, as I said, to Andaman Nicobar. And the tropical climate, when you actually use wood, then there are other challenges like what finishes to use on the wood, and then the weathering problems, over a period of time. So if we can really blend the modern materials to look like a traditional kind of a look and feel, I think as an architect, we would have solved a lot of problems working in a tropical environment.
Let's take the concept, Sunil, with doors, specifically internal doors, where you can be as creative as you like. What are your preferred materials, and typically would be some of the tricks up your sleeve that you have used in your design sense that have made a colossal difference in the overall feel and look and touch of that specific house,
Here
I think when it... Oh, sorry.
go ahead,
Yeah, Sunil, sorry. I thought it...
No, go ahead.
No, please.
No, go ahead, please. You were saying something.
Okay. I think both of us are on the same page. I think we are going to say the same thing because the internal doors are more design specific, and it's very much to do with the theme of our house. I don't think we really look at any other element. Like, of course, while placing the doors, the location of the door, the flow of the spaces, at the planning stage, a lot of thought that goes into it. But the decor part simply flows as per my experience. I think Sunil could have some.
No, I agree with you. There's a large number of materials that are extremely versatile, and if there's a style that someone's wanting, then sky is the limit. Now, earlier no one would have. Now, since the luxury segment has come up, a large number of doors become a part of a paneling also. They ideally do not stand alone as a opening. There are a lot of areas where, smaller apartments, you'd walk through a wardrobe into a toilet. Now, you would not want the wardrobe to look like a wardrobe, but look like a wall, a part of it. And if the entire wardrobe's leather, then your door becomes leather.
So true.
Or spaces like between wardrobes and toilets. Now, gone, it's become a thin line. With youngsters, they want to walk around and make 100 square feet look like 1,000 square feet. So you've got glass doing an entire screen between your dressing and toilet. And, why not? I'm saying you just open it up and the entire thing becomes one. Then wood, of course, has been traditional and has always been something which is very good to look at, gives you that sense of warmth. You have PU finishes. I'm saying it like Milind rightly said, it becomes a part of a theme and a part of a function that you wish to, enjoy. It gives you that versatility and flexibility. Any material can convert itself into a door. I'm saying rather a door can be any material that you want it to be.
So true. I think innovation in doors is something that one can really play around with, right? From the hardware to the framework to the finishing on the door panels to, like you said, from glass to metal to wood to aluminium to anything. It's brilliantly available to us. And the client is willing to experiment, not restrictive like a high-rise where the builder has already determined what he wants and, then work with it. So Jayashree, let us hear a little about of your improvisations in terms of, internal structures where you come in and when you design a house and, you've got a complete free hand to go about doing things. What do you prefer in using internal materials? We've talked a lot about windows, but we're just highlighting on the subject of doors,
Yeah. So, windows and doors, these are light infusing spaces in architecture. So materially, obviously, the biggest change that I have seen over the last 20, 30 years is the size of the openings has become much bigger. So earlier we would have traditional windows kind of, modest sized, and then they became bigger and bigger. Today, so much so that most of the walls or even the exterior openings are primarily windows, and except maybe on the south or southwest side. And that is also happening inside the houses in the way that you have a lot of collapsible doors. You want multi-use spaces. So the living room will have a collapsible door between the living space, family lounge, dining. So you see all of them disappearing in all kinds of innovative ways. So that is the biggest change that I have seen, where people want to have their homes get larger if they want, and then more private and compact if they want. So, yeah.
And do you find companies assisting you with this on a comfortable note in terms of saying, you have a challenge, like you said, there's a living space and you want to open it up into a den?
Yeah, so we're usually searching for, hardware which does that. Definitely, yeah. All the hardware companies are definitely assessing and doing a lot of these fine, desirable elements they add to it. And every exhibition we go for, we do find some amount of innovation which helps get the door larger or the space bigger as quicker as possible.
So I do see a lot of companies today actually engineering this for you. I mean, previously, we would have to find a carpenter, provide him materials and get him to do it, or an aluminium vendor and give him the materials and get him to do it.
Yeah.
But today, big companies are coming with improvised hardware of their own. And they're also giving you the full turnkey solution saying, hey, listen, we can design this for you and we can execute this for you as well. This is our timeline. This is our cost parameters. Have you seen that happening?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Not only is it happening inside the house, it's also happening on the outside. It's usually called facade specialists who help us to have, really larger facades, spaces which are operationally multiply possible to open. You can open them in large areas. You can open them within that area in a smaller opening. And yes, I do find that there is a lot of assistance now that we can get in terms of consultancy to take this forward. Sure.
Okay. And Rohit, let me come to you on this. We have color trends that are preset every year. I've been told that the color trends for this year is going to be in orange, which is kind of bright and flashy. Do we see those trends happening with window frames, which I rarely see? Most of the time it's gray, it's black, it's white, it's the usual stuff, and everyone's going with the same trends. Do you see, people looking at a bright orange window right up in your entrance, or, things like that happening?
So as I said that we mainly do interiors. So we have played around with a lot of colorful windows, from olive green to a red uh, to a dark blue. So we've played around with a lot of doors and windows of those color shades. Of course, mainly in the retail segment, and very few in the residential segment. But yeah, as I said, is for our studio, it is more theme or the concept based when it comes to the interior space. So we will take those design and try to splash it wherever possible.
And what are the materials you generally prefer when you're doing, let's say, residential, where you have residential projects where you have a lot of freedom to say, okay, I'm going to use aluminum windows, I'm going to use UPVC windows here, I'm going to use wooden windows. What are your preferences that generally take you to which?
For the external one, a preference if it is on the coastal belt, only because monsoon doesn't do great on other kind of windows. Aluminum is always tested time and always proven to be the best as per what we've been working on. And internals, of course, then I prefer more of wood when it comes to the internals. Now, just since last 1 year, we've been looking at the aluminium doors, which are the prefab doors which directly comes with the frame and you need to install it. They are like they fit in, and the plug and play is just like magic, because the hardware is slim, the handles are slim, and it flushes with the wall so neat and clean.
So let me come to Nehal. Nehal, you're behind the new brand Eternia, and you've been hearing all of us design professionals come up with different views and ideas. Tell us a little more about the product that you stand with, and what you are offering in the market that makes a big difference compared to all the other people around.
I think first I want to start by saying that I felt very happy listening to all of you talk about window and the kind of importance you gave it in your design philosophy and design thinking. As a brand, we also stand for bringing the best of outside inside. Because we often consider window as something which is to stop the elements outside, right? Stop the noise, stop the wind, stop the mosquitoes. But we seldom think of it as bring in light and bring in fresh air, or bring in life inside. So I think as a brand we stand for that what is the best you can bring inside, and at the same time, of course, you have to provide safety against the others. You also spoke about how the global best is now available in India. So, Indian players are not far behind. And I think that was the philosophy with which Aditya Birla Group, sort of came into this segment, that, why should we be, India is a bauxite rich nation, right? We have surplus bauxite available. Then why should we import these windows from Germany or Italy and, use in our country? In terms of technology, we have Indian companies, who are excelling in every field. So again, there is no reason for that technology to not be available. And that is the thinking we wanted to bring into Windows when, we started this thing. First and foremost, what we did is, Hindalco is the world's largest aluminium company. And what it brings to the table is its expertise in aluminium, in mixing aluminium in a manner that it gives any application a certain property. So for example, we supply for Airbus and Boeing the body of the aircraft. We supply materials for Chandrayaan mission. So we've tried to, and so our R&D labs have worked on a material called duranium, which is superior than regular aluminium when it comes to application in Windows.
So tell us a little more about this whole concept of duranium and how it's termed as duranium, and how does it help in terms of the Indian, weather conditions and all that we've been discussing.
So duranium is why it is termed duranium, I think, comes from durability. So, a form of aluminium which is more durable is duranium. Also in the movie Star Trek, there is a mention of duranium as, very a hard material, like a very strong material. So we sort of also borrowed a bit from there. So that is how duranium came into picture. Then, how does it help? What duranium essentially provides is higher yield strength. So which means when your window is faced with a cyclone or heavy wind, its ability to sustain that and stand against it is, much longer or, much superior. So and today, India is fourth largest when it comes to number of cyclones we receive in a year. So, with that weather changing, we are no longer a country which can say, oh, the weather in India is moderate, so we need not provide for those extremisms. We need to be prepared for that. So duranium helps in that better strength. And at the same time, the consumer preference is we want invisible windows, where there is only glass and there's hardly any material visible. So duranium also makes the window sleeker. So for a more sleeker design, we can have stronger output. That is what the benefit which duranium brings to the table.
Would that add a price tag to be higher than what a normal window would be?
If you compare against, the European counterparts or the international counterparts available in the country, we would be very competitive. Not because the quality is inferior, but because, we mine our own aluminium.
Right.
We are able to pass on that benefit to our consumers.
So
but
do you see a huge rise in, builders using our domestic products as compared to that same notion of, I use only Italian, I only use German. So does it happen to be that you're on a better wicket now?
Yes, definitely. In Mumbai, especially, we have been able to work with almost all large builders, Rustomjee, Runwal, Piramal, Lodha, L&T Realty, Birla Estates. We are working with all of them and many others, right? So, and what helped us in those meetings is really this fact that we are able to provide global best quality, but from an Indian player. So I think that's really helped us, I think, in getting that conversion. So yes, I think when it comes to builders, the notion that, imported is better is, I think, going away. And there is preference. If we are able to match quality, I don't think we are in a weaker wicket versus the global players anymore.
So true, because I see that happening very predominantly with the present system, where a lot of architects, interior designers prefer to use Indian products that are withstanding a tougher, wear and tear than what international products don't offer, because they have a different way of using it as compared to the way our people use it.
Exactly.
And what are the challenges you all have faced in terms of design, which have been a benefit to the architectural segment and the interior segment, where you'll have to cross a lot of territory before you got down to, coming up with a product that's world class?
So I think the biggest hurdle we faced is, maybe a mindset change, because, so there is a market which is unorganized and, which is a certain design and quality. But we are trying to, compete against the imported players, as well as upgrade the unorganized market into a more organized setup, right? So there is a mindset shift required on both ends. On one side, like you said, there is a preference for European design philosophy. So, how do you change that? And on the other side, there is a price sensitivity to deal with. So I think coming up with a product portfolio which can cater to both of these requirements, it has, that superior design sensibility, it has, performance sensibility, and at the same time, it is affordable. It is not something which only 1% of the country can afford. It is something which a much wider base can afford. I think that has been the key challenge. What has helped us there is, of course, a lot on design, but also a lot on supply chain. What we realize is, all the components being imported is what was, impacting cost a lot. And, but like there are, system window players in India who are offering good quality, there's similarly component suppliers in India who are actually exporting it. So, and, while we are importing those same components from outside. So I think finding those gems, is what has helped us a lot in making the right product for the Indian market.
And where do you see, working in tandem with architects like we have on our panel, do you feel that R&D together with them would go a lot faster than, first indigenizing some kind of concept design and then trying to bring it to the market, or vice versa, whatever?
No, certainly. I think, when we did our first round of design also, we did approach, a few architects and, sort of took their inputs that, listen, this is what we are thinking. What do you think? What are the gaps? So I think, we're quite grateful to, some of them who, sort of helped us. I remember, it was the first time when we just started, me and one of my colleague, we went to meet Mr. Contractor. And he was sitting on his big white desk with white sheets of paper, and he drew something for us and gave us like 5 ideas in 10 minutes of time. So I think, yeah, all of those inputs we got from the fraternity really helped us in coming up with a product which has got very high market acceptance today.
So let me throw a nice big white paper to our panelists here, because each of them are as good as big in their own way. Let me start with Rohit. Rohit, what do you think you really need out of Eternia or any aluminium company that makes good window sections to, make your life easier, make your doors easier, make your design sense more,
I think the biggest challenge which we face with aluminium sections, because the extrusions are limited to every company's specification, the customization is not possible, because either we get stuck with the locking system, or either we're stuck with the mechanism of the mesh coming to one side, or we are stuck of not getting a railing on both the sides of the windows, or either or the. So the customization on aluminium windows per se is very limited depending on brand to brand. So there is where if I
first view. So some food to thought in a later date. Let's take it from Milind as well. Milind, what is your view on something that you think the companies in the aluminium industry could help us in our segment?
Yeah, so we encounter a lot of situations where we have to integrate the railings into the windows, especially in the high-end Mumbai flats where we don't give grills. So that is one area I feel we need more improvisation and some kind of a technical innovation to make them slimmer also, and at the same time, they should look. They tend to look very crowded. Kind of that openness goes away as soon as that railing comes in. So that is one area I think we need to work a little harder and to get a better looks to our modern Mumbai flats.
I think that's a lovely idea. Yes, you're so true, because otherwise everyone's reverting to stainless steel, and when the aluminium and the stainless steel combine together, it looks so odd. So they'll go for patch fittings, which kind of put everything out of place. Very well put, Milind. Sunil, give us a little insight of your experiences and maybe something that you can recommend for the future.
If you look at, I believe you all also do curtain wall systems and structural glazing and stuff, in addition to only windows, or we are yet to be there?
We have recently launched our facade line. We have not executed a project on that yet.
So some of these are areas where taller windows, windows which are much wider, in slim sections, lightweight, because otherwise sliding them also becomes a challenge, especially in buildings like Artesia and Oberoi 360. These kind of areas, there's a lot of imports that one has to for where your wind loads are much higher. Your ability to deal with some of those. I also agree with Milind where he said railing integration. If you look at even horizontal, for instance, we've been traditionally used to vertical slidings. But horizontal slidings give you a very nice ability to have no vertical breaks. So when you've got a very limited number of guys who are making horizontal sliding windows, and those are still something which one can do very well to create. You can convert a room into a balcony. Some of these areas where you have L-shaped living dinings, you may some of these zones. In the morning, you're not able to get your sunlight. You have the ability to be able to step into it, use it as a balcony. when you would do that, you'd have probably a sliding folding inside and a horizontal sliding outside, where you're able to bring your entire length down without having any verticals at all. So some of these are areas where you can definitely look at introducing some products at prices which are attractive and an ease of use.
Good point there. Very good point. Jayashree?
Yeah, so I've been thinking, but I think my want would be a bit basic. We tend to use in luxury bungalows glass doors, sliding doors on the outside. And I am a bit concerned about the lockability of every single aluminum sliding door that I have used till now. Somehow it does not give that kind of security. So I think, yeah, there, if you can improve, the locking system of your doors, they don't have to be really large. That is not such a big point for me, but definitely it be more secure. And the second one is the vertical joinery of doors. If there's a series of doors, I would like them to disappear. Like it should just have a mullion on top and at the bottom, nothing in between. So these are my two wants.
So the first one is a really good one in terms of integrating security into the aspect, like Milind said earlier on, the element of a railing that in its own form was a form of security. In her case, it was, we're doing a bungalow in Alibag, you're prone to theft, robbery, there's nobody there. How do you make an aluminium window section secure through the process of maybe integrating it with a security system, along with something that disallows anybody to break toughened glass and enter? I think these are really good points you'll have all brought up. Even Sunil brought in the fact of horizontal windows, and Rohit brought in other aspects which are really good, because these are things that we all are looking for in a change in design. Because what appeals to an Indian doesn't necessarily appeal to a European or somebody else. And the main market we're looking at in India is so different in that context and our requirements. So, like today we'll have lovely doors. And in the old days, I remember someone telling teachers in architecture, why are temple doors low? Primarily because, you show respect and you bend down. And someone would never understand this. Why do you do that? Like in Rajasthan, the doors are so small because integration of, climatic conditions are restricted to have smaller windows. But today we've lost that identity. We've gone into, glass walling in buildings which are compelled to use air conditioning. So everyone's doing that. Maintenance is not possible. You don't have window cleaners. The place looks like, a dustbin at the end of the day. So these are things that unfortunately, so if the integration of even the way that the windows are done, so that makes it easy to maintain at higher spaces, is so imperative. Because Indians are so good at manufacturing and making new products, but maintenance, we lack that somewhere along the line. I wish we can pick that up. Hey guys, it's been a pleasure talking to all of you all. Thank you, Nehal, for having us all on board. Jayashree, Sunil, Milind, Rohit. It's absolutely amazing. We must catch up in person someday. I know these calls, this is the most infrequent thing like we have, but thanks to Hindalco and, Eternia, that we managed to get to meet one another. And I hope to meet you guys in person and not some seminar and conference where we meet and say, hi, you remember we met.
Surely.
Yeah, we look forward to that. We'll take your numbers from Neha and we'll connect over this. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Neha. Once again.
Thank you. Thank you, Suresh. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Neha.
Thank you, all of you.
Howling winds, leaking water, irritating noises, unwanted dust. Are your windows letting all unwanted guests in? Then it's time to switch to Eternia from Hindalco, an Aditya Birla Group company. Eternia are the world's only windows made with duranium. It is a specially invented alloy that enables Eternia windows withstand cyclonic winds and flaunt a stunning finish. Eternia windows are also Weaver certified. They are tested and certified in a globally recognized independent lab to ensure that they provide superior protection from cyclonic winds, the heaviest of rains, noise and dust. These quality factory-made windows come with India's first 12-year warranty on profiles and a 2-year warranty on moving parts, so you won't have to worry about anything even after years of installation. That's not all. Eternia windows come in unlimited colors and finishes. You can pick the ones that match your decor. Go ahead and find a window that will transform your home.